All right, welcome to the Krug Show, everybody. As we get things rolling tonight on the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. Tonight we're inside getting ready to check out some baseball, but I want to talk a little Brandon Aiyuk, and BetUS has the odds on where he's going. And at this point, we're all kind of just waiting on Aiyuk. But BetUS has the odds. And I was like, at this point, I was like looking at the odds because to me, now you look at an election, do you look at the polls or do you look at the odds? I kind of look more at the odds. On NFL draft day, do you look at the rumor mill or do you look at the odds? As far as who's going to draft who on draft day, I kind of look at the odds. So I always, to me, defer to the betting public because I always feel like the people that are putting their money on this, I would, if you're putting your money on it, you probably know a little bit more about it than the general public. So that's my general feeling on it. So anyway, I thought we could do a quick video. A quick live stream here and just go through the BetUS odds on who's most likely to land Brandon Aiyuk and what that actually could look like. All right. At plus 600 on the list are the Pittsburgh Steelers. And yet I kind of feel like this is where Brandon really wants to go. I mean, he said, I want to be a Niner. And if I can't be a Niner, I want to be a Commander. I want to be a Steeler. Well, the Commanders are out. So the Steelers at plus 600, I think ultimately, I mean, we can talk about leverage all we want. I've heard people say, the 49ers are in this advantageous position and the Niners have, all of the control and it's just, well, yeah, but if Aiyuk's not willing to sign a contract long-term, who's going to give you anything draft compensation? And aren't they going to want to know that before they consummate the trade? So I don't know. If you think it through logically, Aiyuk really does have some leverage as far as, he can't make the 49ers pay him, but he can almost determine where he goes via trade. Because if I'm Cleveland, why am I trading anything to get a guy that's not going to play for me or not sign with me? Same with New England, same with Pittsburgh, same with any team that wanted to trade for Brandon Aiyuk. So Pittsburgh's at plus 600. So they're 6-1 right there. Now, what would a Steeler trade look like? Now, a lot of people are saying Pickens. They're not moving Pickens. Pickens is going to stay there. That's my read on that situation. I think if you're trading Aiyuk to the Steelers, you're probably getting an offensive lineman, either a veteran offensive lineman like James Daniels, maybe Dan Moore, or a young offensive lineman, a rookie offensive lineman like a Zach Frazier or a Mason McCormick. I would be a huge fan of the rookies because I am a huge fan of the rookies. McCormick, I think, is a terrific guard. Frazier, I think, is one of the best centers I've seen come out of the draft in 5 or 6 years. I'm a huge fan of Zach Frazier. I was hoping the Niners would go for him in the first round, and they obviously went with Pearsall. But Mason McCormick, Zach Frazier, Alex Highsmith, or Nick Herbig, or a couple edge rushers. One of those guys would definitely make sense for the Niners. Darnell Washington, the tight end, a blocking tight end would make sense for the Niners. Peyton Wilson, the linebacker with no Dre Greenlaw, I think he would make perfect sense for the Niners. But if you said predict it, I would say probably James Daniels, a second-round pick, and maybe like a fourth-round pick. So Daniels plus 2 picks, one being a second-rounder from the Steelers. I think that's what the Steelers at the end of the day would offer. Now, the fact that the Niners aren't, the Steelers thus far have not been able to satisfy the Niners, it's possible that the Niners are asking for a better player. And then it makes you wonder, do the Niners want Alex Highsmith, who's a pretty good edge rusher? 49ers need another edge rusher. There's no question. Drake Jackson may not play this year. Robert Beal's pretty raw. I mean, they could use Nick Herbig. They could use Alex Highsmith. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners wanted one of those two guys in addition to Daniels, in addition to the picks. What's a fair trade from Pittsburgh? I would say, James Daniels, Peyton Wilson, and a third-round pick would be, I think, a very fair trade. You would get a really fast young linebacker. You get a third-round draft choice. You get an offensive lineman that you could plug right in. I think that's a fair trade. But if you could get Zach Frazier, I mean, what's a dream trade? Zach Frazier and Peyton Wilson. Zach Frazier is going to start at center for somebody, probably the Steelers, for the next decade. I think Peyton Wilson's going to be a very good linebacker. Two great young rookies for Aiyuk. It would be a risk, but if you have belief in your personnel department, that would be attractive. If you said to me, what do I think it's going to be? I would say Pittsburgh's going to offer James Daniels, and maybe a second-round pick. And will that be enough? Or do the Niners want more? Do they want James Daniels and Alex Highsmith and a second-round pick? So there are reports out that the Steelers believe that they ultimately are going to win this bidding war for Aiyuk, and that they ultimately believe that they're going to land Aiyuk. And why wouldn't you? Because, once again, if Aiyuk says, you know what, I don't care that Cleveland's given you a great trade offer, 49ers, or New England's offered you a great trade package, I don't want to be there. Those places are banishment. New England is NFL Siberia. They're not going to win. He's never going to the playoffs there. Cleveland is Cleveland. They've never won before. They're probably never going to win. So those are not desirable places. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, is a model organization and one of the NFL's best, with Russell Wilson, who's a future Hall of Famer, a very good offensive line, a strong running game, a killer defense. You're supported in Pittsburgh. So I can understand why Aiyuk wants to go there. But if I'm the 49ers, I would definitely hold out for something significant from the Steelers, because this is an all-pro receiver who's about to have the best part of his career at age 26, 27, 28. But the Steelers are plus 600. All right, the Niners, that Aiyuk would actually go back to the Niners, either on the fifth-year option or via a contract extension. That's plus 500, so 5-1 on that. I think he's gone too far down this road to go there. I don't think he can come back. You heard Christian McCaffrey already refer to Brandon Aiyuk in the past tense today. There's just too many things have been said, too far down the road. The fifth-year option, no. And the contract extension return, yes, he could accept the Niners' offer of $26 million or whatever they're offering. But I just kind of feel like they've handled this in a way where he's going to want to leave. I don't think he's going to stay. I think he's going to leave. So they're plus 500. Now let's get into the teams that are really favored to get him, and that's Cleveland and New England. Cleveland's plus 175. And a lot of speculation is it would be Amari Cooper in a second-round pick, and that second-round pick would be a late second-round pick. Amari Cooper is a nice receiver. He is older. I personally don't love that trade, because you're going to let Amari Cooper walk at the end of the year, and so it just seems like 75 cents on the dollar for Aiyuk at age 26. If I could get Amari Cooper and another piece and a second, or Amari Cooper a second and another day 2 pick, to me, that would be much more attractive, because you're trading the 26-year-old receiver for the 30-year-old receiver. And while Amari Cooper is good, you're only going to have him for 1 year, and then he's a free agent. So you're going to trade your former first-round pick that you just developed in the prime of his career for one pick in the first round in the second round from the Browns, who could have a surprisingly good year, and that pick could be in the 20s. So, but they're at plus 175. And the favorite to land Brandon Aiyuk are the New England Patriots at minus 105. And there was a report out of New England today that Kendrick Bourne's on the PUP list right now, so he's not practicing. But Matt Judon was there at the beginning of practice and then left. And there's been a lot of speculation that Judon, who's staging a hold in similar to what Aiyuk is staging with the Niners, might be the perfect piece to throw with Kendrick Bourne and a second-round pick for Aiyuk. Now, Judon is somebody the 49ers desperately need. There's no question. The Niners need a defensive end. Bad. Really bad. They've got Bosa. They've got Yatir Gross-Matos. They've got Leonard Floyd. And then Robert Beal. But Drake Jackson, probably can't depend on him. And there's no depth behind those guys. So there's a need at defensive end. And if Matt Judon was part of this trade for Aiyuk, I think that would make the Niners excited. Now, I don't know that New England can do anything about the situation they're in. They got a young quarterback. They're starting a rebuild, brand new head coach. Does Aiyuk want to go to a rebuild in a cold weather place where there's a lot of high expectations and they're not going to the playoffs? But, I think the deal would be Bourne and Judon and a second. And that second, I think that's a fair trade, to be honest, because even though Bourne is coming off an ACL, I'd rather have Demario Douglas, Matt Judon, and a second. And to me, that's the fairest trade. But Judon's an edge rusher. A second from the Patriots could be pick number 33. Could be the first pick of the second round. Bourne, if he's healthy, might not be bad. To me, I'd much prefer Demario Douglas. Demario Douglas is a 5'9" receiver in the second year out of Liberty. If you got Demario Douglas, Matt Judon in the second round pick, I think that's a much better situation than Kendrick Bourne. I heard guys debating this on the radio today because JD was saying that he'd rather have Amari Cooper in a second, and Dieter was saying he'd rather have Kendrick Bourne, Matt Judon and a second, and they kind of went back and forth for a while on it. I would probably rather have Amari Cooper in the later second round pick, just because I don't know that Kendrick Bourne is even, one of their 6 best receivers. I think he would, coming off an ACL. I'm not convinced that Kendrick Bourne is a lock to make the 49ers this year based on their other receivers they have in this camp. Ultimately, I think push is going to come to shove, and I don't think Aiyuk's going to sign with Cleveland. He's not going to sign in New England. He's not coming back on the 5th-year option. So he's either coming back to the Niners at their highest extension, maybe that was roughly $26 million, or I think he'll go to Pittsburgh, probably for a similar price, and the Steelers will satisfy the 49ers in a trade. Now, I do believe James Daniels and a pick is probably the Steelers' offer. But, man, if you could get Peyton Wilson or Darnell Washington or Nick Herbig or Alex Highsmith or Zach Frazier or Mason McCormick in addition to Daniels, I think that's a slam dunk. Daniels, one other guy from the rest of that list, and a day 2 pick for Aiyuk, I think's fair. I think that's fair. Why? Because the Steelers then get a dynamic number 1 receiver they can put opposite Pickens. They're probably going to be a playoff team next year. And the 49ers would get 2 players and a draft choice. One being James Daniels and the other being either Peyton Wilson, Darnell Washington, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, or those 2 offensive lineman rookies, Frazier and McCormick. You pick one guy and James Daniels and a second round or third round pick in 2025. And I think that's a good deal. And I think I would get down the road. I know there'll be a lot of criticism because Aiyuk's a fan favorite and he's a great player. But to me, it's a distraction. And, Steve-O says Larry wants the Steeler rookies. He says it's the Steelers. What's he saying here? He says, Steve-O says Larry wants rookie Steelers still have to pay and their boombox guy plus terrible towels, LOL. I do think the Steelers had a pretty good rookie class this year for sure. But overall, I just think ultimately Brandon has the leverage to some degree. The Niners have some leverage in that they don't have to pay him, and there's no way he can force them to pay him. They've got him on the 5th-year option, but he has leverage in that they can't trade him anywhere they want to trade him because he can just refuse to sign. And he's kind of sounds like exercising that leverage and trying to decide what he really wants. And then Mayoko kind of put out that maybe Aiyuk asked for a trade and hadn't really thought through all the different permutations of what potentially could happen. New England, he's never going to win. Cleveland, he's not going to win a Super Bowl. The Niners are his best chance to win a Super Bowl. The Steelers will give him a chance to compete for a Super Bowl and have a great fan base and have a great career. But, to be completely honest, everybody knows this is true. The 49ers are far and away Brandon Aiyuk's best chance of winning a Super Bowl. New England's where he's going to go if he wants the biggest bag. Cleveland to me would be a nightmare situation, but it is a similar offense. And, if Deshaun Watson stays healthy, maybe he could have a bounce back year. The Steelers have a quarterback issue with Russell and with Justin Fields. Who's going to be the guy? It's probably going to be Russell to start. But overall, Pittsburgh's a model organization. And as I said, James Daniels, one other player, a day 2 pick in 2025, I think gets it done. I think he's a Pittsburgh Steeler. I think it will be announced probably in the next 24 hours. Michael Alana says Dan Moore Jr. and Darnell Washington in a second. Our tight end room scares me, and Trent Williams air in Moore Jr. If to New England, Juju has the frame to block and makes $8.5 million annually. Juju, no way. I mean, come on. He's just, to me, it's Demario. If you know New England and you know the talent that New England has, Demario Douglas is the receiver to get from New England, or Javon Baker, the rookie. But Demario Douglas had a really nice year last year. The rookie out of Liberty. He's only 5'9", but he'd be a great 49er, very shifty. I think that would be a nice return. Dan Moore is interesting because he is a tackle, but he's a backup tackle. Darnell Washington's interesting because he's just a behemoth-sized tight end, but he's a backup tight end. To me, I'd like to have starting caliber players. To me, Peyton Wilson's a starter. Nick Herbig is potentially a starter. Alex Highsmith's a starter. Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, those guys are starters. I'd like to have a starter or two for Aiyuk. Is that asking too much? And then we got this one, 49er Talk Show. Pickens and a second-round pick for Aiyuk is fair. If you put Aiyuk and Pickens together, that's a playoff team. I hope the 49ers don't be foolish and help the Steelers. I mean, Pickens is a big-time player, but Aiyuk's the better run blocker. But together, it's an incredible combo. I agree as far as, a second a pick. I don't think you're getting Pickens in a second. I do think that's a fair offer. But that's why you got to get something very, very good coming back. To me, James Daniels in a second, it's not enough. I need James Daniels and Peyton Wilson in a second, or James Daniels and Nick Herbig in a second, or James Daniels and Zach Frazier in a second. 2 players in a second-round pick, I think, should be the price tag for a 26-year-old all-pro wide receiver. All right, that is going to do it. We're going to do a quick deal. We're going to watch some baseball tonight. Thanks to all of you guys for jumping in on the Krug Show. We're going to be back at training camp tomorrow. If anything breaks later on tonight, we will go live and talk more about it. So keep it locked on the Krug Show. Big day tomorrow from training camp. We'll have a bunch of reports. We'll get down there early. Hopefully there'll be some news on this front that moves this thing along. I feel like we're getting close to completion here. I think it's Aiyuk's going to say, okay, I want the biggest bag. Send me to New England. Or, you know what? I want a bigger bag and I want to get out of San Francisco. Send me to Cleveland. Or he may just say, you know what? His agent may put it in his head. You have the leverage. Say no to New England. Say no to Cleveland. Force your way to Pittsburgh. I think he has the potential to do that. But I think also in that situation, the 49ers might be able to get Pittsburgh to sweeten the deal, because there's, why should the Niners help Pittsburgh, have a great tandem, unless Pittsburgh is going to give the 49ers some significant compensation. You got to think that the ask from the 49ers to the Steelers was pretty high for that report to be out that the Steelers were, we're going to go in a different direction. But there you go. Full breakdown. Nothing decided yet. If he signs later tonight, tune it back into the Krug Show. We'll do a full breakdown. Until then, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And, of course, this stream, I should say, is also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California. Call Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. And that does it for us. I hope everybody has a phenomenal night. If you have not heard the news of the day, I am going back to KMBR to help out doing Niner coverage. So we'll do more. We'll talk more about that later on in the week. But really excited to be doing that. And I appreciate all of you guys for supporting me on the Krug Show. And we'll still have more to go on the Krug Show. We'll have more content on the Krug Show. And we're not getting rid of the Krug Show. We'll do our regular Krug Show. Absolutely. And that's going to do it for us. Have a great night, everybody. Kev, where do you see where's the, all right. Okay. Hold on. There we go.